Welcome to Rick Riley's World, where we look at Rick's vast collection. What in the world are we looking at this week, Rick?
Well, I'm going to do something different other than a vehicle. What we got here is a transmission, which is a T-90. This particular one here come out of a Jeep, but the early model Scouts, 4 cylinders. I'm not for sure one's the last year they used a T-90, probably mid to late 60s. But this particular one here come out of like a 68 through a 71. The only reason we know that is because it's got the reverse backup light switch on it. And that was the only years they did that. But like I said, the Scout T-90s and this T-90 are the same transmission. I know most of you guys, it's probably boring to you because you've probably been into these things plenty of times. You know what's inside of them. This transmission here, a buddy of mine, I've known for about 57 years. I got him to do a demonstration at our Jeep show, totally rebuilding the T-90 transmission. And he came over and he says, "Well, I don't have one." He said, "You got one I can borrow?" I said, "Yeah, Larry." This guy's name is Larry Rostanio. He said, "Well, let me borrow it and I'll clean it up and we'll do the demonstration with it." I said, "Okay." So he shows up to the show with this transmission case cut all apart. I said, "Larry," I said, "I was going to loan you a transmission for the demonstration." I said, "I didn't want it destroyed." He got to laughing. He goes, "Well," he said, "I had an old empty case." He said, "This is all the gears out of your transmission." He said, "We put them in there, and so your case is still good." But anyway, I guess we'll start out with your transmission. This is your pilot shaft, or input shaft with a pilot bushing. This sits inside either your flywheel or your crankshaft. There's a bushing that goes in there that supports this here. Of course, this is a throwout bearing. You got a fork that goes here. It pivots here. The arm comes out here. And it slides this bearing forward and backwards to release your clutch disc. So this is your input shaft. It comes into your transmission here. It goes down and drives this with cluster gear. Cluster gear has got a shaft that runs through it that comes out right here. That's your counter shaft that goes through the cluster gear. Inside that cluster gear, there's a metal sleeve here in the middle. There's 2 sets of roller bearings on each end of it. And 1, 2, 3 washers. There's a washer that goes up against the sleeve. You got a set of roller bearings, a washer, roller bearings, and another washer. Same way on this end. And then on the end of the gear itself, there's thrust washers. So when you assemble this transmission, you put your sleeve in your counter shaft or in your cluster gear. Take wheel bearing grease. You put your first washer in. You take your needle bearings and make a row. And once you get the first row in, you slide in another washer, which will push that bearings in. Slide it in enough to where you can start another row of bearings. Shove them in with the washer, same way on each end. And you drop this in, then you got your thrust washers on each end of this on the outside of the gear that goes between the gear and the case. and that's what holds everything together. And then, like I said, then this here's a retainer, a keeper. Like I say, this is your counter shaft for your cluster gear, and this is a counter shaft for the reverse idler, which is right here. And this shaft comes out this way here, and it goes only in this way. It's got enough taper on the end of it where it's not supposed to come out this end of the case. And this keeper here is what holds it into place. The secret is supporting this gear here. But first of all, I guess I got ahead of myself. On these models here, you have to put your input shaft in first. You got a main bearing up here, and this is your front bearing retainer and throw-out bearing sleeve. You put this in, then you reach down in and you pull this gear up, and then you start your counter shaft in, and you slide it in through the roll through your thrust washer, your bearing washers, your bearings, and it comes out through here, and hopefully when it comes out this other end, it'll have a little bearing on the end of it. That's the whole secret. The T14s and T15s, 3-speeds, which is basically made the same way, you can put this in first, and the 14-15, this ring right here, this hub right here, has got a notch in it where you can slide this shaft in, which makes this a heck of a lot easier to put this in. But that's, you know, the 14, 15s and the T-90, 3-speeds, basically the same on the inside. Up here on top, you've got a synchronizer ring here, which is your high gear. You got another synchronizer ring here, which is just for your second gear. And of course, first and reverse is not synchronized, so there's no synchronizer on there. You just have this slider gear here that slides forward. This is your first gear, which is on this fork right here. This is your forward and reverse fork, and this is your second and third gear fork. They slide over these slots right here, and you got your output shaft up here, which comes out through another bearing on the back here, and this is your transfer case gear, which drives your intermediate gear in your transfer case. On the end of that, there's a hub here that, for like I said, the early model Jeeps and the early model Scouts had a plate on back of the transfer case, which would accept PTO, overdrive, and stuff like that. And the only reason this here is on here is to hold this bearing retainer into place to keep everything popping out. Also up in here, and inside of this shaft here, there's another set of roller bearings on your input shaft down the inside of it, that the nose of your output shaft fits in there. So I know it's kind of confusing, but it's like anything else. You do it a couple times, you break them enough, you'll figure out how it works. But like I said, here's your shifter tower here, and it's your shifter cane. And if you notice how this little notch goes backwards and forwards, or side to side I should say, when you pull it over to you and you go forward with it, it kicks this fork back, which slides this in reverse. Then when you pull it up into neutral and you pull the shifter back, it slides this gear forward here, and it meshes into this gear here on the bottom, which is your first gear. Then Then when you go to shift to second, it pushes this back to the neutral position. Your shifter cane comes over and gets on this shifter rail. And when you go forward with your shifter on second gear, it slides this hub here back, which you've got this brass ring here that slows down, that actually stops this shaft from turning. And your ring slides back into second gear, which sometimes a little bit, but that should be your second gear. And then when you shift it again, it comes forward, and the whole thing slides forward into high gear. You got another brass synchronized ring here, and this comes over and drives this here, and then everything's just straight through 1-to-1. Say these T-90s back in the late 60s when we was doing conversions and stuff like that, we was putting V6s and V8s in front of these little transmissions, and they really took a lot of abuse. They're a heck of a transmission, but it's like anything else. You abuse them enough, you will break them. Usually what you break is the input shaft. You'll strip this gear, which is your main drive gear that drives this. You'll strip this gear out here, and after about 3 or 4 times you do that, you might as well throw the case away, because you've stretched the case, and this whole system will just kind of flex around. And then when you put your shifter back on, you've got these notches here and a notch here. Your shifter's in neutral, and you just line these notches up where they go over each other, and bolt her down, and you're good to go. So these I've had a couple scouts, and like I said, they had it's the same T-90 as the internal parts are the same as the Jeep. I think the input shaft's a little bit different, and there's really not that much to them. See your reverse idler, there's another set of, some of them's got roller bearings in them, some of them's got bushings in them. On the inside for your counter shaft. But it sounds complicated, but they only go back together one way, and that's about all there is to them. Like I say, a 4-speed has just got another, it's got another gear in it. Of course, the 5-speed the same way. They get a little bit more complicated. The 4-speed sometimes got 3 forks in them. One of the forks activates, shifts the reverse idler gear. Like I said, these little T-90 3-speeds, heck of a transmission. You usually get a lot of years of service out of them, and not had no problems out of them. The weakest point on them is probably your second gear synchronizer. Inside this here, there's a hub with little dogs in there. They're about this long, and there's a spring on each end of them. So when you shift this into second gear, it kind of collapses those dogs, and when this hub gets back over top of them, they snap back up, and that's what holds them in gear, really, on the synchronizers. And over the years, that little snap ring might break or get weak, and they might have a tendency to jump out of gear on downshift into second gear. But other than that, unless you totally 100% abuse one, they're gonna run forever. So if anybody's got any questions, any comments or whatever, get in touch with us, and we'll we'll see what happens. Like I said, there's a lot of people afraid of the transmission. There are a lot of parts in there, but it's like anything else, they don't go together one way.
Well, that's pretty interesting, Rick. Well, thanks for showing us that. Hey, last week BTV asked people to ask questions of Rick Riley, and we got a couple submitted, and we thought we'd ask a couple while you were here. The first one's from Nathan Adams from Tampa, Florida. He was amazed at your large collection. Can't imagine owning that many, but would like to know what your number one favorite is, or maybe even your top 5. What's your number one out of everything you got? What a tough question.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. I like them all, or I wouldn't have them. First of all, you don't have to be a very smart person to do the stupid things that I do and have all these vehicles. But I don't know. We've got a.
It's tough to narrow that down, isn't it?
Yeah. Like I said, I've been messing with Jeeps since I was in high school. I'm kind of, partial. I love my Internationals. Don't get me wrong there. I like them. I like them all. Oh.
But if you can only keep one or 5.
I was going to keep. Well, we've got a 2-wheel drive 62 Willys Maverick wagon. It's all bone stock, original paint, everything.
We haven't done that one yet, have we?
No, that's another one's been in the trailer for probably 10 years. It's like that truck that's on the lift. Just got it out last week. It's been in the barn for 20 years.
Yeah, we'll probably be doing that in the next week or 2.
Hopefully, hopefully get the gas tank back in it tomorrow and get it cleaned up. And just got, I had to go through all the brakes, starter, alternator, fuel pump. But
So your Willys is number 1?
the Willys wagon, I like that little brown Scout, the half cab one. That's a nice little vehicle.
Yeah, but it just happens to be handy right now. It can't be in the top 5.
Well,
It could be.
It's up there pretty good. I've got a 73 CJ5 that I bought brand new.
That's sentimental.
Yeah, I never would think about getting rid of that one there, but that's probably up in there. I don't know. It's
a tough question, isn't it?
We've got AMC cars. We got a Rebel machine, which John done a few weeks ago. We've got a super stock AMX, which hopefully when the weather gets better, we can get it out. But I just like them all. I mean, that's the reason I guess I got the stupid things.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Well, maybe we'll revisit that question. So, and then we have one more here from a person from Springfield, Ohio. His name is Charity Crable.
Really?
He said, I would like to know if...
First of all, I'm not worthy.
Okay, all right. Okay. I would like to know if Rick is ever going to get off his rear and do anything. Also, I want to know when he's going to come to clean my shop. That's word for word.
Now, I know Charity, I have noticed she's a little dyslexic.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, she's got that problem. Her and Mary's kind of somewhere in the same plane.
You got Mary, you got Charity, and you got Alice.
Alice, yeah. And which all 3 of them, you got to tell them it's raining, you need to get in out of the rain. Charity forgets that she's supposed to be maintaining the two vehicles I got up there in the museum, the travel home and the travelette, that I did notice the other day that I did sneak in there when nobody was looking and done a white glove on it, and I'm really disappointed in it.
Uh-oh.
Next of all, while I was there was a gentleman there from OSHA,
Uh-oh.
and I think Charity was at lunch, and I just happened to be walking through the sheet metal shop, and he was standing there looking at Jim Crane up there in the sheet metal shop. And I said, you know, you're kind of studying that awful hard. He goes, well, he said, we've got a problem. I said, well, what's that? He goes, well, he said, it's not rated for the work it's doing. It's totally underrated. I said, looked up at it and I said, well, that's a 3-ton hoist. He goes, well, he said, the way I see it, it needs to be at least a 5-ton hoist to get Charity's butt up out of that chair to get her to do something. So I did get that smoothed over with OSHA, so she still got a job. So.
Okay, okay.
But yeah, you just tell her that I expect the truck to be top-notch, clean next time I come up to see him.
We'll get that message right to her.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rick. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.